fellas, in today's video I'll be covering Magneto in this Ultimate Marvel Rivals guide. Magneto is a Vanguard, a tank, and is one of the toughest Vanguards in the game. He does shine on his own as well as close to his team, functioning best in a closer ranged combat. While he is good at some things, he can be quite slow and feels like they do nothing in other situations. Magneto does not take long to learn, but does have quite a few abilities that can take some time to properly get used to learning to use in game. Unlike some characters, you will need to keep an eye on your team to properly get the most of his abilities, and in this video, his combos, playstyle, and more will be covered. So whether you're new to him or need a season 1 refresher, this video will be for you. His offensive toolkit consists of his basic attack that gets stronger the further away it lands. His second attack will have you looking at his big back to choose when to use it, dealing knockback effect on top of good damage. His team up that buffs his sword for a new attack. Lastly, we have his melee. It's extraordinarily useful and you'll use him more than you think. His support defensive toolkit has a shield that blocks enemy projectiles, and a shield placed around your ally or yourself that will generate rings on your back faster for damage received. His ultimate sucks up enemy projectiles and throws down a big sphere, doing a ton of damage, topping off with his passive that lets him fall slowly. That's all fairly straightforward, so let's dive deeper into their abilities. Starting off with his basic attack, Iron Volley. Each shot makes a spell field that increases area of effect the further away you are, up to 25 meters. It hits for 35 damage and the spell field does 40 damage, reducing by 50% at 3 meters. This will fire about every second or so, and the spell field will be about 1 to 3 meters depending on the range. Next up we have his melee. If you're on keyboard, I recommend changing the key binding to something else so it's easier to hit. You'll use your melee often with Magneto, especially up against Doctor Strange and his shield. Next up we have the metallic curtain. What this does is it creates a shield that will block enemy projectiles. It does last about 2 seconds and it has a cooldown of 3 seconds, not counting the energy that you do build. On the right you can see the energy meter. You can hold up to 100 energy, and it uses 50 energy per second of the shield being up. With the shield put away, it takes about a second for the energy to start recharging, and then it recharges about 11 or so energy per second. Now this is for projectiles only, so it's not going to be useful against divers or melee fighters. It shines really well when you're pushing through a choke point or leading your team to an objective. For good management, you don't want to keep the shield up the entire time. You may want to keep the shield up for the full duration, but you can end it early by clicking the shield button again. Doing this for brief moments will let you get the most out of this, allowing for more blocking. Up next, we have 2 more of his abilities, Metal Bulwark and Iron Bulwark. This will allow you to put a shield around an ally or yourself. E for ally, F for the self. It has a cooldown of 12 seconds and it lasts 2.5 seconds, with the shield being a total of 300 health. What makes this so potent is that not only are they shields, for every 100 damage absorbed, you gain another ring on your back. So why do we care about the rings on his back? That is for his second attack, Mag Cannon. With this, you'll convert the rings on your back to do a powerful forward attack. With the more stacks of ring on his back means the more damage you can do, with the full charge doing a knockback of 6 meters. The first charge deals 40 damage, the second charge does 65 damage, with the third, the max charge, doing 90 damage and giving you the knockback bonus. This is very useful for getting targets off of your team or to knock back those enemies trying to push in. It technically does not have a cooldown, but you need to have at least 1 charge in order to use it. So definitely don't be afraid to use it before you have that full charge, just to get in some quick damage. It does charge up on its own fairly fast, as you can see just below the crosshair. And then using the shield abilities will let that fill up faster, so you can get better combos in. And then up next we have Meteor M, his ultimate ability. What this does is it will suck up enemy projectiles and then send down a giant meteor, doing somewhere between 100 to 300 damage depending on the charge. And so it sucks up everything within that radius and then launches down that meteor. It does 50% less damage 6 meters away from the center. And so this is going to be really useful in team fights, not so much just on 1v1s. You can use the meteor right away, but if you wait 4 seconds, that lets the radius of it charge up even more, going from 5 meters up to 8 meters. In general, it's not really the best ult in the game, but it's really helpful for defensive measures, as it can easily eliminate some squishies, or if you really need to, get some good damage in on some tanks. You just have to be mindful of the healers that are around. And then as you use his ultimate, you can go up higher or descend if you need to. You just don't want to go up too high so that you can make sure you suck up the projectiles. And then after you use his ultimate, primarily after he uses ultimate, you can use his passive, Magnetic Descent, where you hold the spacebar, your jump button to descend slowly. That is quite literally the only time in this game I have found that to be useful, but your mileage may vary. And the next step we have is team up with Scarlet Witch, the Metallic Fusion. What this does, it changes your basic attack into a beam greatsword. So all you do is press the E ability, and now your basic attack is the greatsword. This does 55 damage per hit, and that can 3-shot squishy targets. The first 2 swings do get off fast, with the third one being slightly delayed, and you can see the timer on it just beside the crosshairs. It does do 55 damage per hit. It also does an area of effect for 33 damage as well, making it great for clusters and in general use. The only downside is that you need to have a Wanda on your team. There's nothing wrong with Wanda, but it's Wanda. So that's the gist of his abilities. Let's hop into some games to further explore Magneto. Magneto is great for close to medium range. His abilities let him act as a cockroach on the front line, just always staying alive, and defensively he can make the star player on your team even tankier. When you're playing Magneto, you want to act as a bullet sponge, using your shields to block projectiles to get your second attack charged. It's also good to use on those divers or those in the center of a fight. With this gameplay, that happened to be Venom a lot of the time. Throw a shield on your team's best DPS. It's more useful on someone greatly helping the team over someone who just happens to be there. Otherwise, you can use it on yourself. His mag cannon is something you can charge easily, so try to use it on the full charge as often as possible. It deals great damage, and that knockback effect can be the difference between winning and losing a fight. His ultimate is great defensively, sucking up 800 damage worth of projectiles, and being able to use that to get an elimination or a few depending on the cluster. But after that's used, you can use a slow descend, allowing for better positioning or damage from above. Proper ult management is key for Magneto, as it stops other ults like Star-Lord's. It's also a good way to get the others to pop their ults while you're holding on to yours. I've also heard that Punisher can counter this ultimate. That is not true. Now, if you're going up against a Magneto, Iron Man and Spider-Man are definitely great picks. Fast-moving heroes are easily the best choice, and they can get in some good damage fairly easily. Storm is another good choice for her team buff. The movement buff is incredibly useful to getting close, and the damage buff will make the elimination even easier. But Magneto's mag cannon is a great tool when getting dived on, especially by Wolverine. Being able to knock them back a little bit, cooling them down, and giving yourself a second is going to be key. As a general rule of thumb, use the map as your shield. Save your shields for when you actually need it. I know that the enemy Magneto is going to get rolled on when I see them raise their shield in the middle of a choke to block a few stray bullets. Some combos to use is his Mag Blaster as the opener. His basic attack will get in some damage, dealing nearly 75% of the health of his squishy targets. Or when the enemy is not back, popping up the shield to charge the mag cannon again and blasting again. When up close and personal, I find it's best to use this melee about every 2 to 3 shots. It hits far and hits hard. I constantly get final hits in with this melee. It will also hit through shields like Doctor Strange's. Even if you do miss the hitbox for the sword, it can be kind of weird. It will still make the other team fearful of your melee. Alternately and easier to use is his basic attack, mag cannon, and then basic attack again. That deals 240 damage. Also, don't be afraid to ask a bad DPS teammate to switch over to Scarlet Witch. Just kindly do it. Wanda is Wanda, but at least the bad Wanda will buff you in the meantime. And when you are playing with Doctor Strange, play aggressively. When you're playing with any other tank except for Penny, protect their pushes. And then when you're playing solo or playing with Penny, just try to be annoyingly alive. Take kills where you can get them, but your first objective should be stalling as long as possible, and then some. And that's a wrap on this Magneto Marvel Rivals Ultimate Guide. Tell me, did I miss anything, or do you have any tips of your own that you think other people should know? Leave it in the comments below. And hey, hit that like button if you're still watching, subscribe for more videos like this if you haven't already, and stay tuned for the next one.